Today marks the day of to some extent, a huge, significant event. Today was published in most of the mainstream media the results of a study that has been done on a homin on a um, fossil that was first excavated about 100 years ago. Um, 115 years ago, in fact, in Goth's Cave, located in Somerset in the Cheddar Gorge. Now, what is significant about this person? He is considered one of the first Mesolithic peoples to inhabit the British Isles. Now, up until then, most part of the British Isles would have been under, or at least been influenced by the glacial period of the last glacial maximum. And when that the glaciers started to melt into the warming period that we are currently experiencing, um, people moved into them because the British Isles were connected to mainland Europe via a land bridge, which has been known as Doggerland. And in the North Sea, there are fishermen with their nets, especially their bottom trawling nets. They are bringing up artifacts, stone tools, bones, etc., from that period, which is the Mesolithic period. But before we start, we have to get some dates correct. Now, the Mesolithic or the Epipaleolithic is different from different parts of the world. Um, in the Western Asia, or what we call the Levant, that's the area that coincides with Israel, Lebanon, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, etc., the Mesopotamian area. That started about more or less 18,000 years ago till 12,000 years ago. And about 12,000 years ago, it led to the Neolithic. That is a different period. Now, in Europe, obviously, it was later. And the Mesolithic or the Epipaleolithic period in Europe starts around 10-ish thousand years ago and ends with farming. I have talked about the farming replacement in Europe. I have a link in the description of the video. It wasn't too long ago, it was only 3 videos ago. And it showed how the hunter gatherers of Europe were replaced by the farmers from Western Asia or eastern parts of Europe, etc. Well, Western Asia or the Levant period, Anatolia, Turkey, etc. So that is the time frame we are looking at. Now, various newspapers have produced and really sensationalist headlines. Oh, the first Britons were this, the first Britons were that. Well, they concentrate too much on a small geographical area, the first Britons. The first Britons were, in fact, the last of the European hunter gatherers, and they were all connected across the European subcontinent, sub area. And I will show you the article from the Telegraph, and we'll just read it and we'll discuss it a little bit. I'm going to have to rush it a little bit because I have other things. So, and let's get on with it. The article states that the first Britons were black. Natural History Museum DNA studies reveal. Technically, they are correct. Technically. We'll read. The first Britons were black-skinned. No, they were not. They were dark-skinned, dark skin can be anything from light olive to black, obviously. Now, we don't actually know the percentage of pigmentation that they had. They had the genes there, and I will talk about them in a little bit. Scientists from the Natural History Museum where you have used pioneering genetic sequencing and facial reconstructing techniques. Well, the facial reconstruction techniques are not pioneering. We have been doing them for a decade at least, and to prove that the first hunter gatherers successfully to inhabit Britain were far darker in complexion than previously thought. So there we go. They were far darker. They were not lily white skinned like the back of, if you guys can see the back of the article color, that is, it's not, they weren't white, completely chalk. No, they had color. So this groundbreaking discovery, and that is the genetic sequencing. But I will tell you that in a little bit, I'm going to show you that it's not actually groundbreaking. It's been done before. Well, I'll just continue reading this so it's a very, very short article. The groundbreaking discovery is made in a stroke of luck after archaeologists found scraps of DNA in the ear of the Mesolithic Cheddar Man, because they call him Cheddar Man because he was discovered, like I said before, in Somerset Cheddar Gorge in Goff's Cave. So that's why they call him the Cheddar Man, because he comes from the zone where cheddar is made, which is cool. So the remains were discovered in 1903, as well as other fossils from across Europe. But they don't mention the other fossils from across Europe in this article, do they? And it ends there. Now, why do I have? Um, I'll show you the BBC article as well, because that's also point. Nope, that's not it. Crap, that's the one. Got the wrong one. Sorry about that, guys. Um, This is the BBC article. Cheddar Man DNA shows early Britons had dark skin. If you want to contrast the Telegraph, the Daily Telegraph, I don't know what this stingy thing is, but it says it had black skin. No, dark skin. And before I present any other evidence, I'm going to play this little video because now I can. And we're going to listen to Dr. Chris, Dr. What is his name? Stringer, Professor Chris Stringer. Sometimes I forget names, but I know the scientist because I follow him on Twitter and etc. And we're going to listen to him a little bit, explain how things are. This is what people look like in Western Europe and Britain 10,000 years ago. Did you see what he said? Stop this. He said this is what people looked like 10,000 years ago in Europe and Britain. Right? Make sure that. I'm going to stop it here, just so I want to know how are you guys? How's the sound? It's really soft. Oh, I'll put it at maximum. I have it already maximum. Let's see how it goes the next bit. I'll replay it again anyway. So this is what people look like in Western Europe and Britain 10,000 years ago. Not what we would have expected. How's the sound, guys? Is it better? I really want to know how is it? How is it? I can't put on my headphones so I can hear it. How is the sound? I'll try and make it even louder. Put that. That I think I'm putting everything at maximum, even my own voice. If I still too soft. I can't. I don't know how I can make it any louder. It's at maximum, and the video itself is quite soft. So even I'm having trouble hearing it. So let's continue. But can you guys hear it still though? Before I continue.
I'm Chris Trigger. I'm a research leader in human origins at the Natural History Museum in London. And I'm holding here this wonderful reconstructed head of Cheddar Man. And I've been studying the skeleton of Cheddar Man for some 40 years or so. And now with DNA technology, we've got the whole genome of Cheddar Man. And here we've got a scientific reconstruction of what he looked like. We've got his hair form, his skin, his blue eyes, and that dark skin color.
Now, I'm sure you guys heard it more or less a bit better. Because I could hear it as well. I can get used to it. But what does it show? Most of the articles that have been posted about, even on Twitter, I've seen the most stupid comments about Cheddar Man. We'll call him Cheddar Man. I am sorry, guys. I put everything up at maximum. The actual video is quite soft. Quite even I can know that it's soft. I have to apologize for that, but I'm sure you guys could hear it at least. I know you guys could hear it at least. It is very, very soft, but you can distinguish it. But getting back to Cheddar Man, yes, he was darker skinned than we are. Let's give us a point of reference. I'm not going to post it here because I don't want to. But you guys can easily find. Just type in the San people, the SAN people from Kalahari, from the southern Africa, southern parts of Africa. They are modern day. They were modern day hunter gatherers. Their skin is dark, olive, neutral. It's a weird color scheme, and these Mesolithic Europeans would absolutely have the exact same type of color. It is a color that is neutral, a funny olive, yes, a funny olive, like I've seen in the chat, a funny olive color, a slightly dark olive color that can go everywhere. It is the base color for living on Earth. You could get that color of skin, transpose it to anywhere on Earth, and then have adapt to the local conditions. You could go dark or light. In fact, the Inuits would probably have a slightly lighter shade or not of this Cheddar Man. I don't know. I don't know. I've read the the actual study, and this is important, guys. I've included at least 3 samples of the actual study because the nature one, the one on nature, I haven't included it in, but I've included 3 sources which are readily available. You can some of them, 2 of them, I think 1 or 2, you can actually download the PDF of the actual study that was published in Nature. But because Nature, this study in Nature is behind a paywall, but I've gotten some independent ones. They're in the description, and they show that how the actual state. I don't know the specifics of the how they've compared. In fact, I've shown something that they have compared. I'm going to now to the next one. This guy. This was from 4 years ago. Scientists have shed light on the ancient Europeans look like. This was 7,000 years ago. 3,000 years from Cheddar Man. Okay, it's still within the same period. It's okay. Uh, they've they've showed that you can see the reconstruction of this guy. He had darker skin, blue eyes, dark hair. Compared to Cheddar Man, he is more or less. He fits. He's the same people, right? He's the same people. Now, this was done 4 years ago. So what these 2 articles from the BBC and from especially from the Telegraph, because the Telegraph just absolutely sensationalizes everything. I'm swapping between the two, but we'll read this study from the BBC News for 27th of January, almost about 4 years ago. That they found that they're published in the journal Nature. If you click on this link, it'll get you to the paywall one. But I have provided ones which are not behind paywalls, so you can watch them at your leisure. They are the actual studies. They are the studies of this study. Now, the author was Dr. Carls Lelueza Fox, and he shows that one explanation for the lighter skin color evolving much later than was previously assumed. So, at least between 10 and 7,000 years ago, that time period will come a bit later. I'll get to that in a bit. The people of Europe, and this guy comes from northern Spain, in a place called La Brana. The one and two, they're the two samples. They were really well preserved. They were able to extract the DNA from the tooth, one of the ancient men, and sequence the genome. So that sort of gets debunks the original two British, well, at least the Telegraph and Telegraph, the Guardian. I've seen them all. They're basically just touting the same thing. It debunks that this is groundbreaking tech science. No, it's 4 years old. Cheddar Man just confirms Labrana. That is it. They were shown. They were also shown because from the DNA that he was darker skinned than modern Europeans, and had blue eyes. And they've also found that these people, Cheddar Man and Brana Man, one and two, they are genetically similar to people from Sweden and Finland, but also from a place called it's MAL apostrophe TA. It's you read it Malta, in near the Baikal lakes, like Baikal Sea in Siberia. So you can see the extent of the Mesolithic peoples. They go from Baikal to Britain, Spain to Finland. That is one people. So the so you see, this is yes, it's just confirms, right? These are people that lived in the western eastern parts of up and for example in Baikal, possibly from 18,000 years to to the British Isles 10,000 years, to Spain 7,000 years. So there's a hell of a lot of area and time. Now, the article goes on that we left the last wave of this was 2014 of Homo sapiens, H sapiens sapiens. Oh, darn, I can't say the HOMO word. um, Left Africa. Here it says 45,000 years ago, but we now know that they left in various waves between 200,000, 120,000, and 65,000, 70,000 years ago. So there's various waves of our species. How H sapiens sapiens have moved out of Africa. Now, uh, I'm gonna go just stop talking about this because there are things that we have to deal with about this discovery. It's not a discovery because, as I showed you guys, it's at least 4 years old that we knew that the Mesolithic Europeans were dark skinned and blue eyes. That is not new. The Guardian probably had nothing to write because this was today's. Um, Also, the BBC also had not much to write about. But so, how does what does this mean to? I'm gonna stop sharing the screen because I'm just gonna talk. Um, what does this mean science, for Europeans, for whatever. Um, what does it mean? It means nothing. Because I made a video about 3 weeks ago, or 3 videos ago, which was surprisingly one of my most viewed videos, one of my second most viewed videos, and I'm really happy about the alt-right actually viewing my video, because I got 400, more than 400 views on it, which is cool. I love the traffic, and it basically dealt with the replacement of these hunter gatherers with farmers around 5 to 6 thousand years ago. And what did these new farmers bring into the European landmass, or we should say Western European landmass, or European landmass, from Greece to Portugal and to Sweden in the north? Well, we know that they brought lighter skin. That is obvious. We know that they brought other uh, like the lactose tolerance, because both La Labrana and Cheddar Man, they were lactose intolerant. But if you guys want to read which the actual study, which is number 3 on my sources, the first two are the first one is a Telegraph. The second one is a showing. I'll even yeah, it was the one about Spain, about Labrana, and the third link is to the actual study. So if you guys want to read that, that actually explains everything scientifically. So there's absolutely um, misconceptions. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a geneticist. I can read genetic data, and I know what happens. Like the genes that give us both the skin color, like I said before, and the blue eyes are the MFSD17, the OCA2, the HERC2. Skin color. The blue eyes is a regressive gene, like I said before in this stream, that if blue-eyed mates with a brown-eyed, for example, brown-eyed color, the blue-eyed will disappear and the brown-eyed will be the dominant. It's just regressive. So that is genetics. It's how it works. It's how that monk Mendel found that out. Found that it basically is Mendelian genetics here, dominance and such. But that is just slightly in thing. So um, I've seen some tweets which said which really ignorant tweets where the Europeans were black, the Egyptians were white, were Europeans, and so on. That is the most disingenuous, stupid tweet. I didn't screen grab it because I have a low tolerance for stupidity. But basically, I'll explain it. The European, the mummies, the Egyptian DNA, which I've linked the video of me explaining that, in fact, which I had with Sargon of Akkad. It's in the description. You guys want to have a look at it, explaining why the earlier Egyptians had more, what you would say, um, uh, Western Asia, the Levant, and Eastern European type genetic genome, compared to after Rome, where they acquired, or at least after the 25th dynasty, which they had Nubian DNA and sub-Saharan African DNA. So I'll explain that. It is easy, but the point is, the Egyptians were agricultural. They were at least 10,000 years later than what either Cheddaman or Labrana were. So you cannot compete. They were replaced. The hunter gatherers were replaced by the farmers, both in Northern Africa and in Europe, which we know came from the area of from Turkey to you do a sweep from Turkey down the eastern Mediterranean coast into Iraq. That is the that is where we get all our this replacement um, the farmers, the early farmers, the Neolithic farmers. It occurred earlier, obviously, in the Levant, and it occurred about 5,000 years ago. 5,000 years ago in Europe, and more or less 6,000 years ago, 7,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago in 7,000 years ago. I'm sorry, getting the dates more or less in Egypt. So that explains why that few of the tweets were saying uh, that Egyptians and so on. What other things that we can talk, which were there? So concluding this, because I think I've explained it enough. Cheddar Man and La Brana and the fossils that were the fossils, the samples, because I can't say another type of words, that were found in the Baikal area of Siberia, and the Swedish and Finland samples of early late hunter gatherers, the Mesolithic hunter gatherers. Yes, they were darker skinned, and we know that the light colored adaptation came to both Europe and elsewhere from the area, possibly of the Levant, or what we call of the Western Asia, or even some eastern, bit more east, from that area, and it replaced the darker skinned hunter gatherers. And it also brought a lot of other things, including, like I said, lactose tolerance. But we already had, which the study that I've told you guys to, the third link, shows that we already had certain immune responses to certain maladies, which just uh, fortified what we are now. Basically, what we are now. So, no, um, we were not kangs. Europeans were not kangs. They were not. Uh, the nose was not African. The lips were not African. They were they were H sapiens sapiens basically. And so yeah, that I hope this sort of clears up some of the misconceptions that have been happening in the media, because just and in media in the social media as well, just gone crazy. And science, this is exciting. It just shows that 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 there is replacement of populations, but there are still one species, one people, H sapiens sapiens, and they are still one people, H sapiens sapiens, no matter what color, what facial features, what height they have, what disease tolerance they might have or not. We are still one people. And I think that concludes my little chat. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's see if there's anyone. Yeah, John. Yeah, I did. I saw a stupid tweet. Yes, I did. Any question, guys? No, well, Beach, 1 in 10. No, it's 10% of Europeans that have that, or it's encoded in. It's 10% of the European genome that has that DNA. They just the Beach Prize, the mainstream media like to play around with words. No, all Europeans have 10% of these Mesolithic hunter gatherers in their DNA. It has certain tolerances to certain diseases, which I can't remember because I just read it quickly today. because I just found it today, and I have to thank my dear friend Archaeonomy for linking me the original, because I just learned about it today, and I did all my research today, and I read enough to make it to show that I found all the links, etc. You, Marconomy, you are. I am indebted to you for giving me this awesome um, material to work with. So yeah, it is not that 1 in 10 UKers carry that. It is it is our DNA of all Europeans have 10% of these peoples. So is it wrong? Oh, no, Carlos David. Oh, by all means, everything's fair in love and war. Oh, the alt righters are bloody idiots. So sure, show them, of course. I'm all for it. They are idiots. They are absolutely morons, as I say. As they are morons. They don't understand genetics. They think they do, but they don't know genetics. They even contradict themselves. I've seen one prominent alt righter that is now the poster boy to the alt right on Twitter, not on Twitter, on YouTube. I've seen some of his studies that he's made, and it contradicts everything that bloody says. So yeah, of course, mate. Well, it's all. I will. I am comfortable in saying what I just said now because I know the facts are there. They are, like I said in a certain stream, it is independent. The facts are independent of us. You just have to you just have to get the data. The data is there. And if the data is conclusive, well, most data is, some data isn't. But most data is conclusive if you use a scientific method. It will, if it's replicated by independent sources, then it's conclusive. And so I will end it now. Half an hour. I think it was a nice little stream. Carlos David, geneticists know genetics, and we have not seen any ultra geneticists yet. We've seen neuroscientists, and damn, I've looked up answers in answers in Genesis, and they have so many biologists. Well, they are called biologists. You would freak out. So if you guys want to have fun, go into Answers in Genesis and or biologists in Answers in Genesis. You will see a list of them. They just, oh man, it just fun to look at so many biologists, quote unquote, in Answers in Genesis. And when we have the alt-right, basically presuppositionally emulating them. When you are a presuppositionist like Saiten Bruggenkite, then you know that you've won. You don't even have to argue again. That's just been debunked. You don't put a presupposition in a hypothesis to where you argue for a theory. You go with a tabula rasa, as I like to say. So see. So guys, I'm going to end it now. Thank you all for coming. If you guys want to support again, I'm going to. Oh, I hate this part. If you guys want to support me, I have a Maker support channel link in the description. It's up to you. I don't mind, but it's there if you guys want to support me. So see you later, guys. And thank you for coming along.